Namaste students, myself Sunil Kumar from the Department of Computer Science. Today we are moving to the next session based on the chapter number 14, SQL commands. And today's our topic is SQL constraints. Already we discussed in the previous session, same topic we just started with the SQL constraint. And today's topic also we are mainly discussing about the SQL constraints. Let us move to the topic now. So in last session, we mainly discussed about the SQL functions. Remember, we mainly discussed about the SQL functions. In that, SQL functions mainly are of two types. SQL functions mainly are of two types. One is group functions and one more is scalar functions. Functions mainly are of two types. One is group function and one more is scalar functions. Group functions is working on the group of data. Group function is working based on the group of data. That types of functions are known as group functions. Group functions will work on the group of data. Multiple group of data will be available. In that group, it is going to perform the operations or column, entire column data. Example, you can take sum, average, AVG, max, min, count. So these are the some functions. That functions work on the group of data. So that is actually known as group functions. And also we discussed about the scalar functions. Scalar functions is working on the particular data. Scalar function won't take the entire data. It will take only the particular data and perform the operations. That is known as scalar functions. Example, numeric functions are there. Numeric functions. Then after that, string functions are there. Then date functions are there, and finally conversion functions. These are the different types of scalar functions. If you want, that is based on the data type of the data. Again, scalar function is divided by or classified by based on the data type it uses. Scalar functions mainly are of four types. One is numeric functions, then after that string functions. Later one more type is that is known as date function, and final last one is conversion functions. So these are the different types of scalar functions. The next we discussed about the order by. Next we discussed about order by, in that grouping the result. Remember, order by already we discussed in the previous sessions, but order by, in that we discussed group by. Order by, in the grouping we are using the order that we discussed in a previous session. The next one is SQL constraints. SQL constraints, we just started with the SQL constraint, column level constraints and also with the table level constraint. We discussed with column level constraint and also with the table level constraint. Two types of constraint we started. Column level constraint is working based on the single column, or it applicable only to the particular column. If you apply the column level constraint, that is applicable only for the particular column. If you apply any constraint to any columns, that is applicable to only the particular column. That types of constraints are known as column level constraints. Next, one more type of constraint, that is table level constraint. Table level constraint is applicable to more than one columns. Applicable to more than one columns, or we can say that applicable for entire table, applicable for entire column, or more than one column is there, means that types of constraints are known as table level constraints. So let us move to the topic. So last class we discussed, just we started with this one, but I am explaining once again here. Remember, the first constraint here, it is not null. First constraint here, it is not null. It ensures that a column cannot have null value. Ensures that a column cannot have null value. Null value should not be possible here. Null value should not be possible in case of not null constraint. Not null constraint, null value should not be possible. The next one is unique constraint. Unique constraint ensures all values in column are different. Remember, it ensures that if you enter the multiple values with the same, multiple columns have the same values in a column, or you can say in a column, the two data is there. Two data is, if you given the same value, then it won't accept. It won't accept it in unique. Unique, if you given, it is all the values should be a different one. All the values should be a different one. That is unique constraint. Next one is primary key. Next one is primary key. Uniquely identified each row in a table, in a database table, to identify the different rows, or you can say the each columns also. We can set one column as a primary key, so it will check each row in a table. It will check each row in a table for unique data. For unique data it will check. The next one is foreign key. It is also same as primary key. Another database table that will be identified as a, in our table one column will be there, that is foreign key, means in another table that should be a primary key, in another table that should be a primary key. So that is actually known as foreign key. And next one is default. Default means provide the default value. It will provide the default value for a column when none is specified. Anything is not specified. Sometimes we are not specifying any data in a column. Sometimes if we are not specifying any data, then we can provide the default value. Then it's possible to provide the default values. For that purpose, we are mainly using of default constraint. The next one is check constraint. Check constraints ensures that all the values in a column satisfy certain condition. Means we are providing some conditions. We are providing some conditions to a table or some column. Then when you are going to enter the data, whenever you are going to enter the data, at that time it will check the condition. It will check the condition is provided. If for example value should be less than 1000, if you given, for example, a value should be less than 1000 means, so it will check the data for whether value is less than 1000 or not. Whenever value is less than 1000, then only is going to enter the data. Whenever that value is specified or whenever condition is satisfied, then only it will enter the data into table. Otherwise it won't enter the data. Everything will be checked when you are going to enter the data into a table. Whenever if you are going to enter the data, at that time it will check the details. Insert into command whenever using, at that time it will check all the constraints. So different constraints are, one is not null, unique, primary key, foreign key, default and check. Not only primary key and foreign key, there are different types of keys are available that already we discussed in the databases. In database chapter we already discussed with the different types of keys. One is primary key, foreign key, candidate key, alternate key. There are different types of keys are available, but these are the constraints used in a table. The first we are moving with the not null constraint. Important one, remember, not null constraint. By default, column can hold the null values. By default, column will having the null value. Null values are possible in case of column. You no need to provide any value sometime. Not always. You don't need to provide all the data. You can provide the empty data also. It's possible. But when a column is defined as not null, whenever a column is defined as not null, then the column becomes a mandatory column. Then column becomes a mandatory column. Whenever a column becomes a mandatory column, then we should provide the data. Otherwise, we won't accept it. So not null means like that. If you provide as a not null, you should provide a data. Is not possible to leave empty. Particular column or we can say particular cell cannot be leave as empty. So it will be like a mandatory column. It implies that a value must be entered into a column if a row is to be inserted for storage in the table. Whenever if you are going to insert the data to a table, whenever if you are going to insert the data into a table, one row in data means one entire row you are going to insert. Whenever if you are going to insert one entire row into a table, then it will check whether the not null constraints are there. Whenever not null constraints are there means you should provide the data. You should provide the particular data. Otherwise, it won't be accepted. Here is the example. You can see here example. Consider the following create table command. It creates a new table called product. It will create a new table called product and 6 columns. It contains 6 columns, 2 with PID and description. Specify the not to accept null values. Here you can see two columns. Here you can see we are checking the 2 columns. Remember, it is a table. Product is a table. That table contains 6 columns. In that 2 columns should be not null values. See here example. create table product. We are going to create the table product. And first one is PID, second description, next company ID, the date of month, whatever it is, next type, and also price. These are the different columns. In the different column, PID, you can see along with the PID, character of 4, description, varchar 2 of 25, company ID, char of 10, DOM, date of month, that is date, type is char of 10, and price is number of 10, 2. These are the different data types. And also you can see along with the PID space not null. You can see that not null. That is one constraint. Means PID should not be empty here. PID should not be empty. And next one is description. Description also should not be empty value here. So that's why there also it is given that not null. So this is about the not null. If you provide all the data as a not null, so you don't accept the null values, won't accept the null values, then all the columns will be mandatory. But here in this example, only PID and description is mandatory. Remaining we can leave as, that is a not mandatory field, so you can leave empty also. So next one is unique constraint. Next one is unique constraint. This constraint ensures that no rows have the same values in the specified columns or columns. A table must have many unique keys. Remember, if you provide as a unique constraint for a particular column, we are providing one condition. We are providing one condition that it should be a unique. If you provide like that, it won't accept the duplicate values. Same values are not possible in a particular column. One column, if you given as a unique, means in that column it won't accept any duplicate value, won't accept any duplicate values, or won't accept the same values. And a table must have the many unique keys. So if you take the table, it's possible to give the multiple columns with the unique values. Unique values is possible. Example, you can see unique constraint applied on the PID of product table, that you can see later. Unique constraint applied to PID of product table ensures that no rows have the same PID values and shown below. You can see here, this is one example. So in this table is created, one product table is created. That product table contains PID. It contains a PID, character of 4. Then it is given that not null. The next one is description, varchar of 25 is not null. Company ID, char of 10. Then date of month, that is date. Then type is character of 10 and price is number of 10, 2. But here you can see one more extra constraint, unique. Unique means that is applied here for PID. For PID, here we applied the one new constraint. That constraint is known as unique. If you apply the unique constraint for the PID, if you apply the unique constraint, that won't accept the duplicate values. Duplicate values are not taken, or same values are not possible in case of PID. But remember, in other cases you can provide the duplicate. To date of month also same, or price also you can give same, type also you can give same, or company ID also you can possible to give same, or description also you can give same. But PID cannot be same value. It's not it's not possible to provide the duplicate values in case of PID. Next important one is primary key constraint. Primary key constraint. A primary key is a field in which uniquely identifies each row in a database table. Remember, if you use the primary key, if you're going to use the primary key, that will uniquely identify the each row. It will identify each row in a table. It will identify the each row in a table for unique data. A primary is a table has special attribute. Primary key in a table has special attribute. Remember, if you provide a primary key, the first thing here it is, by default column will be the not null. If you use primary key, that should not be null values. See, normally we can use not null, we can use, and also we can use a unique. So everything is combined. That two is combined in primary key. So if we use as a primary key, the column should not be leave as not null. It should not leave as null values. You should provide some values for primary key or column. If you given column as a primary key, you should provide some data, and it defines a column as a mandatory column. It defines the column as a mandatory, and that is column cannot be left a blank. When you are going to enter the data, you should provide a data for a particular primary key column. Next, the data held on this column must be unique. So like a unique. See, remember, unique and not null is combined together in primary key. So if you are going to use the primary key, that should be a unique value. Duplicate values are not possible in case of unique. Remember, if you apply the primary key, two constraints are together here. One is not null and one more is unique. That two is combined in a primary key. So we can use with the primary key, that will be the same. That will be the same of not null and also with the unique. Here is an example. How you can provide the example is, here you can see the example. Create a table product. Same table example I took here. Create a table product table we are going to create here with the PID, description, company ID, date of month, type and price. These are the different 6 columns. PID, description, company ID, date of month, type and price. These are the mainly 6 columns, and here PID is given as primary key. PID is given as primary key. Whenever any column is given as primary key, means that should not be a null value. That should not have null values. It should be a not null, and also unique value should be provided. It's not possible to take the duplicate values. But you can see the description here. In description, it can given as not null, means you can have the duplicate values. You can have the duplicate values, but PID, that should not have any duplicate values. Duplicate values are not possible in case of PID. The next, company ID, date of month, type and price. This can have the null values and also duplicate values also possible in remaining columns. The next one is foreign key constraint. Next one is foreign key constraint. A foreign key is used to link two tables together. If you want to link two tables, whenever in a database, if you want to link two tables, at that time we are making use of foreign key. That is mainly using to link two tables together. A foreign key is a column whose values are derived from the primary key of some other table. For example, if you want to set as a primary key of one column, if you want to set as a primary key, then in another table that same column should be a primary key. Remember, if you want to set one column in our table as primary foreign key, one column is there, we want to set that one as a foreign key, means in another table that should be a primary key. In another table that should be a primary key. Then only is possible to set, it's possible to set that as a primary foreign key in our table. Remember, our table foreign key is primary key of another table. Our table foreign key is primary key of another table. Here you can see the example. The two examples are given here. One is create table product. Create table product. Create table product. First one is PID. PID is character of 4 and is given as primary key. Next, description is varchar 25, it is given as not null. Next, you can see company ID. Company ID char of 10. And remember, we are using here references company. Company means one more table CID. It references one more table company. It references one more table company of CID. Then remaining everything is same. So next we will move to the one more table. Next table here. In case of character company table, here you can see one column CID. You can see one column CID, char of 10, and it is a primary key here. So in first table it is a foreign key. In second table that is the primary key. Remember, that is a difference. So foreign key of our table, that is company ID, is primary key of company table. Foreign key of product table, company ID or CID, whatever it is, that is primary key of company table. That is a rules of primary key or foreign key here. Remember, PID is foreign key, but CID is foreign key. PID is primary key in product table. CID is the primary key in company table. But we can see one more new key, that is foreign key, company ID, that references the primary key of company table. That references the primary key of company table. The next one is default constraint. A default value can be specified for a column using the default clause. By using the default clause, it's possible to provide the default values. You can specify the default values by using the default clause. The default constraint provides the default values to a column when insert into command does not provide specific value. Whenever if you're going to insert the data, at that time, if you are not providing any values, if you are not provide any specific values to a column, or we can say the row, at that time you can provide the data as a default value. You can provide the default data when you are going to create the table. So that we can see here. So how we can provide the default values? So here you can see one example. I'm not explaining PID, description, company ID, date of month and type, because PID already discussed as a primary key, that already we studied, and description is not null is given. So company ID, that is not given here. Everything is okay. You can see only the last column here. Last column, price, number of 10,2, number of 10,2. But here I specified number of 10,2 as default. I specified here as a default 1000.00. So means whenever if you are not specifying any data, whenever if you are not specifying any values to the price, automatically it will take the default value as 1000. Automatically it will take the default value as 1000. If you provide any value, that will be taken. If you are not providing any default value, it will take the value of default. Default which value you provided, that value will be taken for P or price in a product table. This is about the default values. By here we reach the end of session today. In this session we mainly discussed about the constraint, SQL constraint. The first we discussed with the not null, important one not null. Then after that unique constraint. Not null means null values are not possible, so column will be mandatory. The next one is we discussed about the unique values, duplicate values are not possible. The next we discussed with the primary key. It's a combination of unique and we can say that not null. Whenever if you set as any column as a primary key, then it should not accept the duplicate values, and also null values also not possible. The next we discuss with the foreign key. Foreign key means that is foreign key of our table is primary key of another table and is mainly used to link the two table. And after that we discuss with the default values, and how you can provide the default value also we discussed. So based on this one, I'll give the worksheet, work out that one. So we will meet in next session. In next session also we are going to discuss about same topic, constraint one topic is remaining. Then we will move to the table level constraints. By here I'll wind up my today's session. Thank you.